Hello, hello. Dalmas, first person in the chat. Haven't caught one of these in a while. Good to be back. It's good to have you back, my friend. Yeah, I can't remember the last time you joined one of these. What's new? Whoops. Mic wants to fall over. Dalmas, you feel like Bam versus Rung Versailles has been slept on a bit. Quite excited for this one. Yeah, I can certainly understand why. I haven't seen too much of Rodriguez, but from what I have seen, he looks pretty good. Pretty good. I'm not too sure. I'm not too clued up on the opposition he's faced. As I say, I haven't really followed his career too closely, but I'm quite familiar with Rung Versailles. And to be fair, he's just his style and his size and power. He's usually in entertaining fights. I don't know if he has the skill to keep up with Rodriguez, but then I don't think Rung Versailles really ever banked on his skill much, to be honest. He is someone who uses his size and strength to pretty good effect. However, he did use a decent amount of skill in the way he took out Chocolatito in the rematch, because he just did a small thing, but it still counts, where he was a bit more patient and he kind of waited for the catch and counter and then caught Chocolatito. So he's not just a mindless brawler, at least in that scenario. But will he be able to set up that kind of opportunity against Rodriguez? I'm not sure. Yeah, what's your prediction for that fight? Who are you going with, Dalmas? Yes, G-Man. How you doing, brother? Hope you're having a good Saturday evening. Got any plans? Anything special? Okay, so G-Man, you got an interview of a channel. You gonna give us any clues who it is, or is that a surprise? Kivia S. Hey, Outmatch, seen you on G-Man Live. Yeah, um, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but my subscribers have shot up by over 100. Thank you to the one and only G-Man for having me on. So, yeah, thanks to G-Man as always. And of course, thanks to you, Kivia. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Thanks for joining us. And I hope you enjoy this one. This is just a quiet one, kind of an impromptu one. I was so bored today that I figured I'd just hang out with some of you guys and talk boxing. Dalmas. Oh, excuse me. Boy, I've got banned by a close decision. I feel like Rodriguez's power will make the difference in this matchup. Okay, so Bam's got some power of his own. Let me check his record actually while we're on the topic. Yeah. Where is it? That was, if you go on BoxRec, it just threw me off. So you know on the homepage where it has the schedule down the right hand side, I'm seeing Jesse Rodriguez Franco versus Wikasil Wangek, and obviously I know Wikasil Wangek is Rungvisai's other name, and it's just throwing me off. I'm thinking, who's it? And it clicked. So Bam Rodriguez, what was that? 10 knockouts out of 15 wins. Okay. I saw highlights of the Quadras fight. And Quadras is a good fighter. Other than that, I don't really recognize anyone else on his record. I've seen a few of his knockouts, Rodriguez. So I think this is definitely going to be the toughest ask of his career. You know, old Wisaksil Wangek, aka Srisaket Sorungvisai. It's a mouthful. Who hasn't been doing too much himself recently. The last name he fought was Estrada back in 2019. He lost that on a UD. So, interesting. So it's actually Kaiva. Wait, I'm struggling with that. Kaiva. I'm assuming this is an Irish name because those are notoriously difficult to pronounce. But regardless, it's good to have you here. What do you make of the Rungvisai Rodriguez match? Some of these, speaking of names, a bit random, but some of these Thai fighters, in especially, have some funky names. Some of their names are crazy. Let me see if I can get some up. Usually, all you have to do is go down to like the lighter divisions. So, if you check the rankings for like light flyweight, and okay, maybe not flyweight. Let's go to. Let's go to minimum weight. Let's check there. Yeah, so number one rated fighter at minimum weight on BoxRec is Panya Pradabsri from Thailand. And his alias is Pechmani CP Freshmart. Now, I don't know what that means, but CP Freshmart is so common with these fighters. I don't know what kind of meaning it has behind it, but if we go to the next Thai fighter, who's Chayafon Moonsri, okay, number 2 ranked minimum weight fighter on BoxRec. His alias is Wanheng Minayothin Kayan Gada. What does that mean? But yeah, a bit of trivia for you there. Okay, TMT. Hello, my friend. How you doing? What are you doing this Saturday? Obviously here. At least your profile's here. Got any plans? Romain Lansford. What a name. What's your take on a potential Haney versus Stevenson? I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure because uh, if you ask me which fighter I'm more impressed with, I'd say for the most part Stevenson, even though he hasn't had his undisputed fight or anything like that. But I just see him and I think he's a bit more polished, probably a bit more well-rounded as well, and in my opinion has a higher ceiling. And Haney, I think he's good. I don't think he's anything special. I don't think he's that far ahead of his contemporaries at lightweight. So, but facing these guys, say if they had a fight at lightweight, I don't know. I'd be inclined to go to Stevenson, but I'm not sure if he'd win by much. But yeah, I'd say Stevenson, just based on the eye test and ability. Um, but I could understand how Haney could win. I don't think if Haney was going to win, I don't think it'd be that decisive either. I think it's going to be a relatively close fight, no matter which way you cut it. But thanks for the question, Dalmas. Excuse me. Well, okay, I'm back. Thoughts on Raymond Ford? I haven't really watched too many of his fights. The last one I saw was his fight last year, last summer at Fight Camp, and I always thought he was pretty, good. I think I saw his pro debut, and I was impressed by his just raw athleticism because obviously he's a pretty small guy. What is he? Featherweight, I want to say. Is that right? But yeah, he's a small guy. He's in the lighter divisions, but he was quick for his weight, and alongside that, he had some pretty good balance by the look of it. Especially like he has that kind of in and out style a little bit. He's a little bit of a pot shotter, I want to say, but he's just so quick. And he like quick fighters, they can be a handful, even if they're not particularly skilled. If they just have tidy technique and they're in and out quite fast, it can be a pain in the ass to deal with. Raymond Ford, though, if you want to know what I think of his future, first I have to confirm which weight class he's in because I cannot remember. Is he? Wait, is he even a super bantamweight? I cannot. I cannot remember to save my life. Okay, rather than just going through all the weight classes, let me just type in his name. That'd be the intelligent thing to do, wouldn't it? There we go. Okay, so yeah, it was featherweight. Um, yeah, I saw one of his early fights and he just completely smoked the guy. I think the last fight I saw of his was the Reese Bellotti fight, which I think was always going to be a bit of a gimme. Felix Caraballo, isn't that the guy that Stevenson fought not long ago? Yeah, that's the guy. Yeah, Raymond Ford, he's cool. Don't mind. I have to watch a bit more of him though. Born a Blue TV. Okay, we've got a Chelsea supporter in the house. Good to have you here, my friend. Do you think Jeron Ennis would beat Crawford or Spence now? Oh, tough question. I think he has a better chance of beating Spence now than he does Crawford. Would I actually pick him over Spence? Well, I've kind of recently maybe sold Spence a bit short. I actually picked Ugas to beat him because I thought Spence was a bit, I wasn't sure about his condition after the car crash and whatnot. But I don't know, man. Jeron Ennis, he's got the athleticism. He's clearly got some level of ability because he's been fighting a decent level of opposition and pretty much just blown them away. Um, do I pick him though? I'm not sure how battle hardened he is. That's the only thing. But I don't think he beats Crawford now. Potentially could beat Spence now. Not to say that I think, say, Crawford wipes the floor of him. I don't think that's the case, but I just think stylistically, Spence would maybe play into Ennis's hands a little bit more. Just my opinion though. Mr. Relax never misses a stream, do you? Good to have you, my friend. Who would you like to see Yoka and Miller fight next, or maybe each other? Yeah, I mean, if that fight got called next, Yoka versus Miller, I'd be happy with it. Yoka coming off of a very rough fight against Martin Bacoli. So you imagine he'd be looking to have some kind of fight to boost his confidence. Miller, similar deal maybe, because he had a long time. He was out of the ring for like 4 years, then came back against Bracamonte, and I haven't seen that fight yet, but apparently he didn't look too good. So you can understand how both guys would probably want fights in the interim. But yeah, I think that's a good fight. Yeah, who would I want to see if they weren't going to fight each other, which I don't think they are? Who would I want to see them fight? Maybe I don't know. Maybe Yoka could fight like Sergey Kuzmin or something, because Bacoli beat Yoka, but Kuzmin, I think most people agree that Kuzmin beat Bacoli. I certainly hold that sentiment. So maybe close the triangle and have Yoka fight Kuzmin. Miller, I don't know. I'm not even sure if I really agree with Miller fighting again, you know, just to kind of fly off on a tangent. You know, this guy he truly showed no regard for his blatant cheating. You know, didn't really show any remorse. Who would I like to see him fight next? I don't know. I'm not even sure if Miller's the same guy who he was, you know, because I was like kind of impressed by Miller. I thought he was an interesting addition to the division, because he was a big guy, had a good engine, had a good variety of shots. Wasn't the biggest one-punch knockout artist, but he was a volume guy. He was pretty consistent. Yeah, he was a unique style in a division full of unique styles, so it was only going to be good. But then, yeah, when the AJ fight fell through, and obviously all this stuff came out about drugs and stuff, you just kind of wonder, like, the best version we saw of Miller, was that just him on PEDs? I think we have to, and that's the thing. It's like we can either ban this guy and he's not allowed to compete in the sport again, but then we don't see if he actually has any true natural ability, or we can let him in, but then potentially, you know, I think everyone's entitled to at least one chance to redeem themselves, but Miller's had more than one chance. So just my opinion. Not sure where I stand on it. Romain Lansford, thanks, man. Thanks for the great content. Been here for a while. Subscribe via Hatman. Oh, okay. Oh, that's good. Cool. Well, thanks for subscribing, and so you've been here for a while. Thanks for supporting the channel, and glad you like the content. I hope I can continue to entertain you, my friend. Are there any other meaningful fights coming up soon? What we got today? Murodjon Akhmadaliev versus Ronnie Rios. That's WBA and IBF Super Bantam. Ronnie Rios. I don't think I know who that guy is. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen this guy fight. That's the main event. On the undercard is Bam Rodriguez versus Usyk Wangek. It's not the greatest card, is it? Not in my opinion. What other fights are there? So I saw someone said Sam Eggington versus Przemysław Sisk. I'm not great with Polish names. Any chance that Sam Eggington gets turned over again, like he did against Joaquinho? I think it was the guy. Pilot on crack. Yes, sir. How you doing? Ennis should fight at least one world level opponent before going in with Crawford and Spence. Both have huge experience at world level, which makes him a big favourite over Ennis. Yeah, that's I kind of share that sentiment as well. Ennis clearly has a lot of natural ability. He's got, freakish athleticism, decent skills from what I've seen. But you just wonder how much guile, how much ring toughness, and how many wrinkles does he have to his game, considering he hasn't really fought or he hasn't really been in many competitive fights. He's obviously fought Sergey Lipinets, but that was who's definitely a world level fighter, but that was he was coming up. He's a smaller man. Who else has Ennis fought? Let's pick it apart. But yeah, I certainly agree, because especially like Terence Crawford, who's just been fighting at world level for the longest time. Errol Spence Jr., he's been a champ since 2017 and been fighting some good level opposition since then. Jeron Ennis, though, Castillo Clayton, he was undefeated, but was he, he had a draw against Lipinets, who Ennis had already beaten. Other than that, Demarcus Corley, who's just ancient. But yeah, that's obviously his most recent fight. Thomas Denorme, who Terence Crawford beat himself. And I don't know, Thomas Denorme he was never held in that high regard. He was always like a good, serviceable fighter. Sergey Lipinets, as I say, he was coming up in weight. He'd already been beaten by Mikey Garcia. Chris Van Heerden, washed up, seen much better days, beaten back in 2015 by Errol Spence. But to Jeron Ennis's credit, he's been dealing with these guys. He's on a 3-fight knockout streak, and the Van Heerden fight ended in no decision? But it was clear that fight was only going one way in reality. But yeah, so it's not like a dig at Jeron Ennis. He's really done what you'd expect him to do. However, you do have to be objective, and you have to ask these questions if he is to fight the elite opposition in his weight class. It's just that simple. Dalmas, thoughts on Shields versus Marshall? I believe that fight was made official recently. I'm not sure if I saw any official announcement for it, but I think it's one of the only female fights I'd actually tune in to watch live. And if you want my prediction, I think that Marshall wipes the floor with Shields. I don't think the class. I don't think they're really that close in ability. Marshall is a brilliant fighter. She honestly is. Whereas Shields, she's all right from what I've seen. I don't think she's anything special, and I don't have much confidence in Shields going into the Marshall fight. So, but that fight needs to get made. It seems like they're really kind of dragging it. It's like they're trying to have 2 interim fights and then they fight each other. What's wrong with just one interim fight? I don't think they need to turn this into some saga. Like I remember when Andre Ward was going to fight Kovalev, and Andre Ward, but that was kind of different because Andre Ward was moving up to like heavyweight, fought Barrera, fought Brand, fought Kovalev. So it's kind of different, but you can kind of see how they're trying to, I don't know, engineer this rivalry while they have interim fights. Not that I think they need to. I think they can just get the fight on, and then people will be happy. Born a Blue, Joe Joyce versus Bakoli would be good. Yeah, it would be very good. I think it would be a very entertaining fight. I really like Joe Joyce, and for the most part, I've liked Bakoli. I thought that he could have done much better against Kuzmin, though. But I like Bakoli's style. He's quite relaxed, lets his shots flow. He's got a decent variety of shots. But Joe Joyce, that guy's I think he's going to be a nightmare for a lot of people. I think maybe Tyson Fury is someone who Joe Joyce probably wouldn't do particularly well against. Maybe Deontay Wilder, like Deontay Wilder on his day. Um, but other than that, I think Joe Joyce is a handful for a lot of people and probably beats most people, including Bacoli. But I think it'd be a good competitive fight for the most part. Mr. Relax, Kevin Larena versus Marius Wack, September 17th. Who's Kevin Larena or Larena? Who's that? If you could tell me some more, but I'll check him out in the meantime as well. G-Man. Okay, G-Man, all the best, mate. And have a good interview, whoever you're interviewing. And yeah, I'll see how much longer we go for. If you catch up at the end, then I'll see you there. Okay, let's check out this Kevin Lerena. South African professional boxer. Yeah, I've never heard of this guy before. It's from Joburg, South Africa. 27-1, 14 KOs. Okay, looks okay on paper. Bogdan Dinu. Come on. Bogdan Dinu. What a lad. Firat Arslan. I know that name. He's old school. 97 he turned pro. Sefer Seferi. Yeah, so okay, Lorena has been okay, I recognize quite a few of these names. Who did he lose to? Johnny Muller or Mueller, who I don't think I've heard of. Actually, no, I have. Yes, he did fight Alexander Usyk in 2015. Got stopped. No shame in that, but it's not really something to boast about. Okay, I'll check out some footage. I won't jump the gun on this Lorena guy, but yeah, not looking too promising unless he's like super skilled and his career hasn't picked up. But I don't know. I'll check him out. Okay, yeah, TMT Lorena versus Kalenga some years ago. He was nothing special. Yeah, I suspected as much, but I'll see. I'll see how he looks. Dalmas Manbun. What fight that's currently scheduled are you most excited for? I'm not too sure, to be honest. G-Man asked me this the other day when I was on his channel, and for the life of me, I couldn't think of which fights there were. Obviously, the obvious one, the elephant in the room, would be Usyk versus Joshua. I think that's another. Like, I'm excited for that one once again. Yeah, these guys running it back. Other than that, I don't know. There are a lot of fights on, it seems, but just none that are really standout fights, in my opinion. Like just going off of box rec, like there are some names, but they just don't seem to be fighting like in big competitive fights, I want to say. Like Derek Chisora versus Pulev. I don't want to watch that. I'll probably will end up watching it, but I'm not particularly excited about it. Israel Madrimov. I like to check out Madrimov, but who's he fighting? Oh wait, is that? Yeah, he's having a rematch against Soro. Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Can't say I'm excited, but it's interesting. Yeah, man, I just don't know what to make of these fights, to be honest. So yeah, it just have to be the obvious one, Usyk versus AJ. Now there's some prospective fights, I guess you could say, that are interesting. Or as I said the other day, watch it. Golovkin versus Canelo, or Canelo versus Golovkin. I'm going to be interested in that one, but that's a little while away. That's like 3 months nearly. It's not until September, but interesting nevertheless. I guess the kind of prospect of Bivol versus Beterbiev, that's interesting, but I don't know how likely that is. Um, but to be fair, I wouldn't write it off happening this year because, as we've seen, we've had a lot of meaningful fights. How many undisputed fights have we had this year? Because I've lost count. Um, but we've had a lot of undisputed fights, and that's what I was saying. I was saying it a while ago to Hatman and I think Boxing on the Edge, just about how sometimes you have years where it was one of my live streams actually. Sometimes you have years where it starts off really strong and it kind of sets the tone. And what it does, like, it's almost like other fighters, they see that the year's kicked off with a bang and they're just like, okay, we need some of that. Like, I want some of that attention. I want some of that spotlight. And before you know it, every month has a meaningful fight. That's kind of what this year feels like. So who knows? We're only halfway. Who knows what fights we get? Pilot on crack. Out of Frank Sanchez, Bacoli, Joe Joyce, Hergovich, and Hunter, who do you think poses the greatest threat to the heavyweight top three? Usyk, Fury, Joshua. Well, styles make fights, so I may pick one fighter who I'm almost certain beats one of those guys, but for the other two, he doesn't stand a chance. So let me go through them. Frank Sanchez, I think he's dangerous for all three. I don't necessarily think he's going to win those fights if he fights Usyk, Fury, or Joshua, but he, I think he does himself justice and really gives them all tough fights. Particularly, I want to say Joshua. I feel like Frank Sanchez might be able to catch Joshua and maybe have him on wobbly legs. Bacoli, I don't know. I don't know if he does that well against any of them. I suppose he has the familiarity of being with Joshua, like Joshua's sparring partner on a relatively long-term basis, but Joshua also has that familiarity. Um, I have to see more of Bacoli because whenever I've seen him, he's kind of blown a bit hot or cold. I want to see if he can get some consistent form. Joe Joyce. I think Joe Joyce is dangerous for Joshua. Usyk, I don't know. Usyk already has the confidence of beating Joe Joyce, even though Joe Joyce was a much lesser fighter back then. Hergovich. I don't know. Hergovich. He fights so infrequently that I'm not sure. I don't know. Hergovich. I'll come back to Hergovich. Hunter. Now, Hunter is a fighter who I think does a good job against Fury. I think he could potentially be Fury's kryptonite, as I think Usyk may be to Fury. Because a lot of people say that Usyk's too small. And I understand what they mean because Fury's a big guy. Usyk's a smaller guy. But being smaller isn't always a disadvantage. I'll say that. I think technically, Usyk is considerably better than Fury. Fury's no slouch, but he can be very messy at times. And I think from a stylistic point of view, I think I've always favored Joshua over Fury. Call me crazy, I know, obviously. Joshua's just lost to Usyk and Fury's just sparked out Dylan White. But from a stylistic point of view, I always favored Joshua. It's still close. I don't think there's that much between them, but I don't know. I think Fury can be beaten. I'm not blown away by his Fury. I'm not blown away by the mystique of Fury. But yeah, I hope that answers your question. I'll get back to Hergovich is an interesting one. I'm not too sure about Hergovich. TMT. I'm trying, but I can't get excited by Canelo versus Golovkin. Aaron waiting for Bivol to leave the zone, I guess. Yeah, cross the side, cross the street, like all that nonsense. It's a shame, but we have to deal with it as boxing fans. I can understand what you mean. Like trilogy fights is a little bit played out, but imagine if Golovkin was to do something special and go the distance, or maybe even beat Canelo. That would be interesting. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's likely, but there is that kind of intrigue to it, and at least some time has elapsed since the second fight. Like nearly 4 years, or it'll be 4 years by the time the fight rolls around. And they've had interim fights, so I feel like these guys are always going to bring the best out of each other. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Golovkin's like last hurrah in that fight. Boxing on the Edge. Hello, brother. Afternoon, evening chat. Heading out the door soon, my man. So unfortunately, I couldn't join you. That's no problem. We all have things to do. This was a very impromptu stream as well, but glad that you dropped by, even if it was for a split second. And I hope you have a good Saturday evening, as always, my brother. And I'll catch you on the next one for sure. Mr. Relax. Mark Magsayer versus Ray Vargos. I did see that one. Did see it listed. You got to be looking forward to for that. I think both undefeated and lots of KOs. I suppose. I wasn't particularly like Magsayer did a good job against Gary Russell, but I wasn't blown away by his performance. And Ray Vargas, he's one of those fighters who I'm guilty I haven't seen that much of. I think I saw a bit of the Kameda fight, so I'll definitely check him out though. I haven't really done my due diligence and done my homework, but if you want to recommend some fights, people, I'll happily, or some fighters, I'll happily check them out in the lead up to their fights. I just, there are only so many hours in a day. I don't spend all my time, scanning boxing, contrary to popular belief. But yeah, I'm happy to take on recommendations. Jimmy Oj, who's the best 175 fighter in the UK and has the best chance of winning a world title, even if the answer to both questions are different? I believe that Anthony Yard is the most talented fighter at 175 pounds. And I want to give him the best chance of winning a world title because he came so close before. And I do feel like Anthony Yard is still improving potentially. But I don't know. Instinctively, I want to say Anthony Yard. I have to be honest. But Joshua Buatsi, he's got ability. He's I think I'd be surprised if he didn't win a world title at some point, but you have to imagine, obviously, Beterbiev has 3 belts. Bivol has the last one. I don't really see other people beating them guys other than each other, if that makes sense. So, Callum Smith's moved up, but he's had 1 fight. So I can't really judge him, to be honest. I suppose if you were to go off his form at super middleweight, he'd probably be a handy guy, a decent guy. Joshua Buatsi, Anthony Yards, obviously Craig Richards. I'm not sure about Craig Richards. I feel like he's a threat, but he just doesn't follow through. I don't know if he has. I don't know if Buatsi, I don't know if Richards has the style where he can truly capitalize and win a fight. I think he's going to be one of those fighters he gives you a difficult fight, but he doesn't necessarily win. I think Buatsi thought the Matchroom Machine gets a world title. You think Buatsi through the Matchroom Machine gets a world title? Yeah, potentially. But say like Buatsi, would he beat Bivol? I wouldn't bet on it. I'd fairly comfortably pick Bivol to win. Beterbiev, I just don't think that's a good matchup for Buatsi. Buatsi gets caught quite a bit. So I think both guys be able to potentially get him out of there, actually. Eventually after the Beterbiev era. Well, yeah, if it's after the Beterbiev Bivol era, I think both guys have a chance to uh, both Anthony Yard and Buatsi have a chance to win world titles. As I said, I'd be very surprised if they didn't. But who knows? Who knows? TMT. I imagine Beterbiev using 2 phases of attack versus Bivol, falling into Bivol's guard, and then trying to manipulate and combine. But what initial move can Beterbiev use to get close enough for that first phase to start? Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's what I outlined in my Joe Smith pre-fight video. I'm not sure if you caught that one, but with Beterbiev, in his fight against, I think the guy's name was Kaladzic, he kind of slip to the front foot a little bit and do like some leaping left cross to obviously close the distance. And, if it lands, that's great. If it doesn't, he'd use the arm to basically get onto like the neck / head of his opponent and control him, and then just chop that right hand in. And it worked to decent effect. I don't think really saw it too much against Joe Smith, because I think Beterbiev was a bit more wary of Joe Smith's power. With Beterbiev, he does, he uses a bit of an active guard, but I don't think he sells his feints hard enough, because that's the thing. Like in boxing, you want to make use of feints, but you need them to be convincing, so there has to be like a little bit of an edge to the feint. However, you can't rush it, because you have to. The whole point of the feint is to get the reaction from your opponent. So if you rush the feint and jump the gun, you don't actually give your opponent a chance to react. You can't get any info. So I think Beterbiev, he doesn't really sell his feints. They're very slight. There's not much to them. But with Bivol, he's a little bit kind of center line dominant, but he does so in a way, he kind of uses enough mobility to kind of offset it. He has that kind of in and out style, but not only does he do that, he takes angles as well. And he just kind of, he just has like a barrage of straight punches, and he mixes them up quite well. Would he be able to really sting Beterbiev though? I'm not sure. I think he'd certainly have the best offense that Beterbiev come up against in terms of like boxing. Someone like Callum Johnson is probably the biggest puncher that Beterbiev has faced. But was Callum Johnson really that sophisticated? Bivol was probably not as big a puncher, but might be able to hit Beterbiev a bit more cleanly and consistently. What else? Yeah, it's interesting. Certainly interesting. Bivol, yeah, I think both guys can do better. They're both at the peaks of their careers, but there's still improvements that can be made. But I keep meaning to watch the Beterbiev fight again to pick it apart against Joe Smith. But yeah, I think I'm not sure which kind of style both guys would look to employ, or what kind of tactics rather. It is interesting. Maybe have to address that in the next live stream. Boxing on the edge. Beterbiev seems to want to move up soon. Maybe the belts become fragmented soon enough. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because he obviously fought heavyweight as an amateur. But to be fair, has Beterbiev... I've never really seen much of him struggling to make weight, so maybe he's comfortable at light heavyweight, and he wants to see if he can have his crack at undisputed and go from there, because he probably has the power to hang at cruiserweight. But then the cruiserweights... And yeah, cruiserweight's not the strongest division right now, but realistically, Beterbiev versus Lawrence Okoli, I don't know if that goes well for Beterbiev. Because let's be real, Okoli's a small heavyweight, Yeah, interesting. Pilot on crack. Could one of the British light heavyweights beat Canelo? who would have the best shot against him, asking since they've almost shot against Bivol or Beterbiev. Well, it's certainly not going to be Callum Smith because he had his shot and he was soundly beaten. But then, once again, Yard and Buatsi, I think those two are really leading the pack in terms of British light heavyweights. From a stylistic point of view, though, I'd maybe favour Yard. I think he's a bit more fluid, maybe moves a bit better around the ring. Not to say that he's any defensive wizard, Anthony Yard, but I think he gets hit a bit less than Joshua Buatsi. But I think both of those guys still need maybe like 1 or 2 fights before they think about taking on Canelo, even though Canelo, he's more of a super middleweight. TMT, gonna check that video again. Cool, yeah. That is the Artur Beterbiev Joe Smith Jr. pre-fight prediction. Boxing on the edge. I like Bivol on points. If him and Beterbiev eventually fight, Bivol's movement discipline and that shovel swivel jab, he will definitely get tested. Like he's never been tested before, though. Great fight. Yeah, it certainly is. Yeah, I tend to agree with that as well. Bivol on points, but not by much. You can't count someone like Beterbiev out. Mr. Relax, is Anthony Sims Jr. still boxing? I think he might be. I think he had a fight not long ago. Let me just search his name because I was thinking about him the other day and I was like, wait, is this dude still fighting? I think he is, but just in obscurity. Or am I wrong? He last fought in December of 2021 in Minneapolis against someone who was 17-14-1. So yeah, since he's lost to Angulo, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's just been doing some soul searching and wondering if boxing is actually for him. But yeah, I guess he still is. He fought 6-7 months ago. But is he still in boxing? Like, is he still in it, invested in it? I'm not sure. Doesn't look like it. Romain, did you see the interview of a colleague hinting that he's leaving the zone in 258? If true, why do you think this is? Why do you think he'll sign? Or who do you think he'll sign with? No, I didn't. To answer your question, firstly, I didn't see that. A colleague hinting at maybe he'd go to Sky. Maybe he wants to be a big fish in a small pond rather than a big fish in a big pond. But then, how many cruiserweights does DAZN have? Because remind me if you know how many they have. Because maybe he's just not happy. Maybe he wants bigger fights because he won his world title recently, but I don't know how many fights could be made. But then you have to imagine, like, cruiserweight's been one of those divisions historically where there isn't that much money, even though the talent is fairly deep. So a lot of these guys, they're not doing all this cross the street stuff. They're just like, just pay me enough and I'll fight. So you got to say the top 3 guys: Okoli, Bradis, and Makabu. I'd pick Okoli to beat all of those guys, but can DAZN secure him those fights? I imagine they can. I don't see why they wouldn't be able to. So yeah, if he was to leave DAZN, I'd want to know why. Maybe it is just the matchmaking. For Michael Shizlak in February, Dylan Prasovic, that was on the AJ Usyk undercard. Before that, Glavatsky, and that was for his title. So yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to check it out, see if I can spot anything, but I'm not sure why. Yeah, just heads up, people. I'm only going to go for a few more minutes. This was just a quick one, a quiet one, just to pass some time on this Saturday. So you got guys got any questions or topics you want me to answer before I call this a day, leave them in the chat. But I'll probably do another one of these next week, maybe, because, you know, if one of the fights turns out to be a real good one, I might do a review. But I can't imagine I'm going to do too many videos. So I might just put a live stream in its place. So, any last questions, or I'll bring this to a close? Apologies, folks. I just had my mic on mute because my neighbor has the loudest motorbike and he just pulled up in front of the house, and that shit is loud. So, but I'm going to call it a day here anyway. Thanks to all you guys that made an appearance and stayed in the chat and just spent this past hour talking boxing with me. It's greatly appreciated. Hope you enjoyed it. As I say, I'm probably going to do another one of these next week. So yeah, I'll chat to you guys soon. Nevertheless, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, the rest of your weekend. All the best, and I'll catch you in the next one. So yeah, thanks people, and good night.